Want to take a walk back down memory lane. Do you remember this match? Obviously, the feud itself was pretty big for you at that point in your career. But do you remember being able to get your hands on Mr. Cornette, whom you did end up defeating with a very perfectly executed Shane Douglas power slam?
I do. I remember the angle there. There was a lot of stuff that went into that angle. From behind the scenes, when you first sent that on the run sheet, I thought you were talking about the match where he came to the ring and had all the padding on, and had all the gimmicks in his pocket and everything. But as soon as I started watching the link and the YouTube link, and the match came back immediately with Stan Lane, and I couldn't have told you it was Peoria, Illinois, but I do remember the match. And when you go back, to me, my takeaway from that when I was watching it was everything we see missing in the business today. So you have a manager in Jim Cornette who could talk his ass off and really generate some serious heat in the building, on the television show, whatever. One thing about Jim Cornette is many fans love him today because of his history. He wasn't a much loved character back then. I bet to say that most people in the building that could have gotten their hands on him would probably killed him, because he was so damn good at what he did. One of the best ever. And when you see that storyline, how it plays out, and without boring everybody with the history between the Midnight Express and the Dynamic Dudes and Jim Cornette and the whole thing. For those that do know it, if you don't, go back and review it on YouTube and other places. But for those that are familiar with it, know what I'm talking about and saying that it demonstrated all that was best about the business then. It wasn't, hey, here's Jim Cornette screwing the Dynamic Dudes in week 1. In week 2, here's the Dynamic Dudes trying to fight back. In week 3, here's the Midnight Express getting their heat back. And in week 4, here we are at a pay-per-view, and the Dynamic Dudes win or they lose. Midnight Express wins or they loses. And now they go and they wrestle the Road Warriors, and Dynamic Dudes go and wrestle, the New Zealand, what were they called? The New Zealand Express, the New Zealand Militia. Which is what we see today, right? Here's a storyline that we're going to start tonight, the genesis of tonight. It may have some tendrils back to some other history, but here's the angle we start tonight. And when's the next big pay-per-view? 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, we blow it off, and then we go to something else. The business today, and again, like I said earlier about the Becky and Joe thing, the world is vastly different today. But the arguments that I hear counter, saying, well, yeah, but you can't do it like that anymore because the network, and you can't do it like that anymore because of the live events, and you can't do it anymore like that because there's 1,000 reasons because. To me, all of them point back to all the reasons you should be doing it like it was done before. With the pay-per-view being every, 3-4 weeks. So we started, there's a genesis of a storyline and an angle tonight. And the pay-per-views, we'll say, is in 3 or 4 weeks. Where is it written in stone that the audience has to be given a final blow-off to that angle by the time that pay-per-view, or at least during that pay-per-view, comes off? Steve Austin said that, they want to get something over, they'll dump gasoline on it. But what he meant by that is, when that pay-per-view comes around, why not dump gasoline on that and rev it up even more? Look at when the Taz Sabu angle in the ECW. It was 14 or 15 months between the time that Angle storyline began, when Sabu couldn't get back from Japan, until they were finally standing face to face at Battle Legal. And when that happened, the moment they're standing face to face in the ring, I'm up in the crow's nest watching through the curtain. I can't. I never liked watching a monitor at a live event because it's so sterile. You can't get a feel for the audience. So I would always go up and watch, from some bow of the building, like where the fans couldn't see me. And, not to blow smoke up either Taz's or Sabu's ass, there was electricity in the building that night. And the only time previous in my career I had ever seen or felt that kind of electricity was when Hulkamania was at its biggest, when it was still pretty new and, Hulkamania was running wild, brother, right? I used to get done wrestling, get my shower, and get the hell up into the building because I wanted to feel Hogan's entrance. That was the same thing, very close, that I saw with Taz and Sabu. Well, if we were doing it then, like they're doing it now, Sabu would have missed that show because he couldn't get back from Japan. 3 weeks later at the next DCW Arena show, we would have filmed the confrontation. And 3 weeks or 6 weeks after that, we'd had the blow off. And I would make the argument that it's pretty unlikely that you would have felt that static electricity in the air if we had done it that quickly. We gave the storyline enough time to breathe and ferment, and it did over those 14 or 15 months, to where those fans were so involved in the storyline that they couldn't wait to see those two stand face to face. There are probably a lot of them, a vast number of them, that didn't believe they would ever be face to face. And so when they finally did stand face to face, it created literally electricity in the air. That's what we're missing today. So when you go and you look at, a storyline that's presented and blown off in 2 or 3 weeks or 4 or 5 or 6 weeks and never given a chance to breathe or ferment, it's a big part of what I think is wrong with the business today. Nothing is given the chance to reach maturation. It's just, let's hurry up and get to this and move beyond it. And same thing then, like with Midnight Express and the Dynamic Dudes. For us, being two kids, it was a great learning experience. We're working with an incredible team and Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane, and with an incredible mind in Jim Cornette. For me as a kid at that point, when you watch that link, for me, what's going through my head as I'm having that match with Stan is that what an incredible learning opportunity this is. I didn't for a second think or believe that we were on their level. But if we were going to get to their level, that was one of the things that was going to help us get to that level, was working with them. And I think, a big part of that is missing today. As far as the slam on Jim, when I watched that link, it's like I said earlier, like stuff is not there for instant access, but in watching it, like I was right back in that moment when I picked him up for that slam, because he, let's just say Jim isn't the most athletic guy, right? It's not like you got Bobby Eaton in there or whatever. But when it came to stuff like that, an integral spot, a finish in a match, Jim was 1,000% committed to it. And he didn't go in there and sort of half-ass it or lag it or lead weight it. He went in there and was committed to it and placed his trust in me that I could do it as a young snot-nosed kid and not hurt him. That if he's going to commit his body to me, that this snot-nosed kid ain't going to fuck it up. And for me, looking back at it now, especially today, uh, looking back at this history lesson that I'm giving this in this episode, uh, incredibly much appreciated. And, a big thank you to Bobby and Stan and Jim for having taken the time to teach us and allow us to learn from them. Because there was an awful lot for us to learn, and there was an even greater amount that they could teach us. So, it wasn't at any point us thinking like, hey, we're the next big thing, and these guys are yesterday's news. We're going to just walk right past them. Hell with that. I want to work with these guys as long as I can, as long as we can, and learn as much as we possibly can from working with them. And it was a lot of fun watching that. Taking me back, and like, the problem for me now and watching like old clips like that is, the veteran in me keeps on coming out in my head. And so I'm watching me, oh shit, you did this wrong, you did that wrong. Why'd you turn that way? Why didn't you do this or that or the other thing at whatever point? But they're always fun to watch those, especially things like that you haven't seen. Like how many times I've seen the NWA belt throw down, right? 10 gazillion times. Something like that you don't see that often. And so watching it and snapping back in that moment is a hell of a lot of fun.